From TLDR News, this is your daily briefing for Thursday, the 5th of January 2023. Good afternoon. In today's Spotlight story, we take you through the latest political drama from the United States. This isn't the only thing happening in the world though, so we'll run through three of today's other important stories, and in our exclusive Nebula section, look at Meta's legal trouble in the EU. But first, why are the US Republicans in turmoil? 6 votes in 2 days and there is still no speaker. Despite Republicans winning control of the US House of Representatives in November, the party is in total turmoil, as a group of hardline rebels have inflicted 6 defeats on Kevin McCarthy, the House's top Republican, who is in an increasingly desperate bid to become Speaker. The latest ballot, the 6th, was held on Wednesday and ended with 201 votes for McCarthy, 20 Conservative Republican rebels voting for Brian Donalds, and 1 Republican voting present, meaning McCarthy was well below the 217 votes required. On each of the 6 ballots, all 212 Democrats voted for their candidate, Hakeem Jeffries. In a sign of just how stuck the situation has become, former President Donald Trump endorsed McCarthy ahead of the 4th round of voting. But this had no effect, as McCarthy went on to lose the next 3 rounds as the once Trump-loving rebels ignored his endorsement. The House cannot do anything, including swearing in its members, until it elects a speaker, so they must vote in successive ballots until one is chosen. So how could this political standoff actually end? Here are the 3 possible outcomes. The first is that Kevin McCarthy wins a vote and becomes House Speaker. This could happen on the next vote, the 7th, or it could happen on the one after that, or the one after that, and so on. If he does eventually win, then it'll be because he wins over a portion of the 20 or so holdouts by making even more concessions. But while that may secure him the Speaker's chair, it would likely weaken his hold on power, because it would demonstrate that this kind of political hardball played by the rebels does actually work. Striking a deal would also be difficult, as while the rebels are all from the further right of the party, they don't all speak with one voice. Some simply don't like Kevin McCarthy. Some want specific rule changes. Some want commitments that McCarthy would be willing to shut down the government rather than raising the debt ceiling. The second option is that McCarthy agrees to stand aside in favour of another Republican. McCarthy has so far given no indication that this is something he plans on doing. However, if some of the roughly 200 Republican representatives that have consistently voted for McCarthy get sick of the seemingly endless ballots, then they may choose to break ranks and back an alternative for McCarthy. If enough make that decision, then it could force McCarthy to step back to allow Republicans to rally around a candidate that's more palatable to the entire House caucus, something like the party's second-in-command in the House, Steve Scalise. The third option is that moderate Republicans work with the Democrats to elect a compromise candidate as Speaker. Now, this is very unlikely, as any Republican compromise candidate would increasingly draw the rage of conservative Republicans for relying on Democrat support. Plus, whether or not it would be a wise move by Democrats is another question entirely. So, Republicans are scrambling to end the impasse, and we don't know how long it'll take. What we do know, though, is that however long it does go on, and whoever becomes Speaker, the whole saga can be nothing but damaging for the Republican Party. Okay, so that's the biggest story of the day, but there's a lot more going on around the world. So here's a rundown of 3 other stories. In a week's time, Prince Harry is set to publish his highly anticipated book, Spare. Following years of turmoil and division within the royal family, the book is expected to be highly inflammatory and highlight the rift between King Charles, Prince William and Prince Harry. Today, we got a taste of this book, as some key sections have been leaked to the press. The Guardian has reported on one particular story in which William and Harry have a physical confrontation at Harry's old house. Harry has claimed that William called Meghan difficult, rude and abrasive, something Harry claimed was a parroting of the mainstream media narrative. The confrontation escalated, with William eventually grabbing Harry's collar, causing his necklace to be ripped, and pushing Harry to the floor. Harry fell on his dog's water bowl, which smashed and allegedly cut into him. Harry claims that William did come back to try and apologise for the incident. It's quite possible that further explosive stories will be published in the book next week. There's more on the way, but be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to make the daily briefing part of your daily routine, or just search for us on your podcast app to listen along. As we head into 2023, the war in Ukraine shows no sign of slowing down. Already, we've seen one of the most catastrophic days for Russia in the war so far, with scores of troops being killed by a Ukrainian missile on New Year's Day. Today, President Zelensky has asked his European partners to provide his nation with heavy tanks in an attempt to boost Ukrainian firepower. So far, Western nations have not agreed to send such tanks, but have instead agreed to send armoured vehicles and lighter tanks. France, for example, has agreed to send Ukraine French-made AMX-10 RC armoured combat vehicles. This is the first time that Western-made combat vehicles have been supplied to Ukraine. However, after this announcement, US President Joe Biden said he's considering sending fighting vehicles to Ukraine, although nothing has yet been agreed. We look to Taiwan now, where 3 active-duty military officers and a retired Air Force officer have been detained on suspicion of spying for China, according to the Central News Agency. The news report alleges that the retired officer left the military in 2013 and then started doing business in China, where he was recruited to build an espionage ring. Prosecutors reportedly suspect that the individual recruited 6 officers and was paid, via a shell company, somewhere between 200,000 and 700,000 new Taiwan dollars, the upper end of which would be equivalent to about 22,800 US dollars. Chinese espionage is a major concern in Taiwan, which is self-governed but considered by Beijing to be an inalienable part of China. Towards the end of last year, Taiwan's defense ministry said spying by China was a serious threat to the island. In the final uplifting story today, we discuss a development in the aviation sector. The sector has made an ambitious pledge to reduce their carbon emissions to net zero by 2050. It has recently been revealed that one product, which is usually considered waste, could be key to this target being met: used cooking oil. Used cooking oil can be turned into sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF. It's been suggested that replacing conventional aviation fuel with SAF would reduce industry-wide emissions by 80%. Perhaps if SAF does become more widespread, the aviation industry will meet their net zero targets after all. That's all we have time for on YouTube today, but if you want to see our discussion of why Meta is in trouble with the EU, then watch the extended ad-free edition of the Daily Briefing over on Nebula. Now might be the time to do it, as there's an offer which gets you a year of membership for less than $1 a month. That's huge because Nebula subscribers not only get everything you've already watched ad-free, but also an extended edition of the show every single day, available to watch on Nebula or stream on your podcast app of choice. They also get access to a ton of other exclusive ad-free TLDR content, as well as videos from all your favourite creators. The good news is, like I mentioned, our friends at CuriosityStream, the streaming service which offers you some of the world's best documentaries, is offering an incredible deal whereby you can get both platforms, CuriosityStream and Nebula, for less than $12 a year. That's all the documentaries you could want on CuriosityStream, and then more TLDR content on Nebula, including the extended briefing, other full exclusive TLDR videos, and it's always ad-free. Click the link below to get both services for less than $1 a month, a deal which doesn't last long, and support the channel.